So today I'll be reviewing the Andor Star Wars Black Series Cassian Andor number 10. I ended up getting this figure a few days ago for $5.99 at my local Ross. You definitely cannot beat going to Ross and finding some of these figures. I don't know for sure if we're gonna end up finding more than just one Andor figure, but I ended up getting this one. This is the only figure I got when I went a few days ago. This is the new style box as well. I kind of prefer these boxes versus the other slanted one because it just felt like it doesn't display that well, because I do tend to display some of my figures in their boxes if I haven't opened them on the shelf. So having these like perfectly rectangled box, definitely pretty nice. And also it being an open window box, it did have a time period where they were closed. But just looking at this figure, $5.99 is not bad considering how Black Series figures did raise up in price just a little bit. I believe I saw this at Walmart for either $23, maybe $24. But for $5.99 you cannot beat it. But unfortunately this figure isn't really the best as far as accessories and or articulation. So let's go ahead and look straight into the figure. I'm just gonna glance right here at the box. Kind of nice with the new style box like I mentioned before. So we're gonna go ahead and look at the accessories first, and then we'll look at the figure, the details, articulation, all that kind of stuff. So here we have a quick tray shot of Andor. Let's go ahead and get to the weapons. So for the accessories, he only comes with 2 weapons. Not sure the exact name of these weapons, but here we got 2 blasters right here. So they are pretty well detailed. You got some chrome right here and then just some flat plastic. Really cannot complain too much with how these look. I think most Star Wars figures tend to come with some form of weapons. So definitely having this right here is actually pretty unique. This right here is going to be my first figure in the Andor wave. All right, so not really much to say about the weapons, but here we have Cassian Andor. This is actually a really cool looking figure in my opinion. You guys can see there is a good amount of detail. Now I am going to point out some things I like and dislike, which is mostly going to reflect on the articulation, because most figures such as this, the articulation isn't really that great. But we're going to go ahead and put some of these weapons here on his hands just to see what they end up looking like. So Andor does have 2 open palm hands. Now this one looks more for like a trigger finger hand right there for the weapon, and this one's more like an open palm hand on the left hand. Not sure exactly why they decided to do it that way, but you know, having 2 weapons is actually pretty cool, but considering he only has 1 holster, you know, the possibility of losing the other one is probably there. But at the end of the day, I don't really mind having this holster here, at least just one. Honestly, I can't remember exactly which outfit this is in the season, but it looks pretty well detailed from what I could remember how he tends to dress. You guys can see that they added a lot of detail here on the legs. On the jacket is a nice soft rubber. You guys can see some detail here, which I actually do appreciate that. Even on the back, it's pretty plain, but you guys can see the sculpt that they actually added a lot of wrinkles, which is actually pretty cool in my opinion. Overall, this definitely looks like Cassian Andor. You guys can see the scope is actually pretty good. I'm kind of surprised that they actually did the scope fairly well. The hairstyle looks pretty on point. The likeness is pretty on point. Even like the 5 o'clock shadow, or at least the light beard that he has, is portrayed pretty decently in my opinion. Now, one thing is kind of weird. If you open up his jacket, this is the torso from Luke Skywalker, I believe. You guys can see that it does have that little bend right here. And this is from Return of the Jedi, I believe. I don't have that figure on hand, so I really cannot compare it. But it does look kind of weird, especially this little neck area right here. Not sure why this tends to move around a little bit. You guys can see that right there. Overall, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. It is kind of lazy, but I guess, you know, this is meant to be closed and you're not really going to remove this. So I guess the torso shouldn't matter. But he doesn't have any kind of like ab crunch, as you guys could tell, which that does suck. It doesn't like have that little split down here. But we're going to go ahead and go into the articulation since we decided to bring that up. So honestly, when it comes to articulation, single jointed elbows, which is kind of surprising for, you know, Black Series to still be doing that. Here his legs can go that high up. Single jointed knees can go a little further down, not too bad. No toe articulation. His ankle does go up and down. It does swivel as well, and he does have a little bit of rotation right here on the shin or above the ankle part, which I guess is decent. No thigh swivel whatsoever. Having some thigh swivel would be pretty good, in my opinion. Like I said, he has no ab crunch at all because, you know, the thing is like one solid piece. He can rotate like this. Not that you would naturally do this. His arms do rotate 360. Both of them do. No butterfly joints, which does kind of suck. He does kind of look like he has some kind of thing right there, but I don't think there's butterfly joints, but it doesn't really want to move much. But overall, the articulation kind of sucks. But then again, this is not really a good figure, or at least not a notable figure that you'd be posing all that much anyways. So I guess that's why. On the knee right here, it does swivel, which I just noticed that it is kind of good, I guess. But overall, when it comes to articulation, I'll definitely give this figure a decent 4 out of 10. Having like at least that crunch would have been nice. Everything else you could have, you know, get over not having double jointed knees or double jointed elbows, but just having that ab crunch would have been pretty nice. His head sculpt barely goes up and barely goes down, but he can turn his head left and right. Now, I'm not sure if they didn't add a lot of articulation just because of the type of figure this is. You know, if you had like a Darth Vader, you would assume that you would add a lot of articulation, or like a Darth Maul or some kind of Jedi. But this one having just like basically basic articulation kind of does suck. Now, there is a scuff on the beard. You guys can see as I was just rotating this, I ended up, I guess, scratching that because I'm pretty sure that was not there when I started doing this review. Let me go ahead and zoom in real quick. You guys can see there is a scratch on the beard now. I'm not sure exactly why. I think I messed that up. Yep, I think that's part of the plastic. Honestly, when it comes to Andor, he is not a bad figure. I just wouldn't pay the Ross more than the Ross price at $5.99. Definitely a decent pickup for Ross. I would avoid getting this one for retail. But you guys let me know down in the comment section below. What do you guys think of Cassian Andor? The show was great. No issues with the show, but these figures do kind of suck in my opinion. But yeah, you guys let me know down in the comment section below. What do you think of this figure? And I'll probably pair him up with other figures that I end up getting in his line if I'm able to find any more Andor figures. And I'll see you guys in the next video.